talk to Gage.
Alright guys, so today's video might be a little different, but this is something I really wanted to share with all of you. I am going to give you 3 tips to get the most out of and enjoy your Nintendo Switch Online subscription service, or if you have the expansion pass, either or, it's the same thing. But before we get into those, let me first give you all some background to this topic for me personally. This is something I have found myself thinking about recently. I bought NSO plus the expansion pass as soon as Fire Emblem Blazing Blade released onto it back in June. I was thinking, yeah dude, I'm gonna play some games, play all these classic games I've been wanting to play for so long. After I finish Fire Emblem, I have so many more things I can play. But I just kind of didn't do that. After I finished Fire Emblem, I just kind of stopped. So what happened here? After all, there were some games on the Nintendo Switch Online service that I really wanted to play, but I just could not get myself to dedicate time to anything on there for a bit. A lot of these games don't age as well or don't look very good by today's standards, but I wanted to experience some of these games that have just been on my backlog. I put my Switch down for a bit, but I eventually did come back and I played Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, a game I played a lot as a kid. As a matter of fact, hey, can you slide me that? Don't worry, we'll cut that out of the video. There it is, there it is. This is the copy I had as a kid and I still have it to this day. So yeah, I played it a lot as a kid. It's a fantastic game, by the way. I totally recommend playing it if you haven't already. I started this game on NSO doubting I would actually finish the whole thing. However, I discovered a few things that I did or decided not to do that actually really improved my overall experience playing this game on NSO. So this brings us to my list of 3 things I think you should keep in mind in order to enjoy these games as much as you want to. So without further ado, let's dive right in. So the first tip I want to give all of you is don't use the rewind feature unless you make a mistake. Now, if you make a mistake, that's fine. I don't think there's anything totally wrong with that. If you have drift, especially on a Joy-Con or your controller, and it makes you, click on something that you didn't want to or do something you didn't want to, I think that's totally fine. That just makes sense to me personally. I know I'm being that guy right now. There will always be people who say you need to avoid new features like this because it takes away from the true experience. I used to not think this mattered much, but now I finally get it. Now, I would be lying if I said I never used this feature during my playthrough of Mario & Luigi. I used it at the final boss, and that was it. And that's really only because the final boss, Cackletta, is a huge difficulty spike, and I really did not want to redo the first part of that boss, because it's 2 phases, and once you get to the second part, 1 HP, and you have to just dodge everything, otherwise you're dead. This sucks, just in general. If this game had a re-release or a port, I would hope that they would fix this fight in some ways. Yes, there was a remake on the 3DS. According to the Mario Wiki, she actually has lost some of her speed stat, but she has also gained defense and HP. Although they did also make it to where you don't have to redo the first part of this boss fight if you die during it, which is great. There you go. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That is some way of fixing the boss fight. Although I don't understand why they had to make her have more defense and HP. That doesn't make any sense. She was already incredibly difficult. So I felt like I was a little more justified rewinding here than any other part in the game. Besides, if I didn't do that, the game would just probably leave a bad taste in my mouth at the very end if I lost and had to redo her whole entire fight from the start. That would just not be fun. But I will say that I would have made a save state at the beginning of the second phase. If I could go back, I think that would be a better thing to do. That way, if I died, I could essentially be playing the game like the remake tried to fix it. I think that would have made it a little bit better. But the general overall, I feel like, rule should be to just try not to use the rewind feature because it's just extremely powerful. That actually brings us to the second point I want to discuss, and that is to try not to use save states and use the in-game saves whenever they are available or it's possible to use them. You know, it completely ruins the flow of gameplay. Pausing after every few minutes or even seconds to create a save state after every level or significant moment in the game. Minigames, especially platformers, almost entirely lose all of their challenge when we do stuff like this. Getting so caught up in wanting to save after every little thing just ruins the experience for me personally. So the best thing to do is to play these games using the in-game save points whenever they are available. Though using the save states should be okay sometimes as well, it just depends on the situation. If I was in the middle of something and needed to put the game down for a while, then I would obviously use the save state so I could pick it up later from where I left off. But I must also bring up another point as well. If you just want to experience everything an old game like an NES game, for example, has to offer, then maybe it is not a huge deal to use anything you can to see the end. I personally see very little that is fun about that, and trust me, I've played games like that. But if that's all you're trying to do, you just want to see the end of an old game like this, and it's just like you don't see yourself playing it the normal way for whatever reason, and you just, want to see the end of something like Kid Icarus and everything it has to offer in terms of story or boss fights, then go for it. I suppose it makes sense there, but I've just found that in general, I enjoy these games much more when I don't cheat using these features, and I instead try to put myself in the perspective of someone at that time playing this game, because they didn't have features like this, and just trying to enjoy and see what the designers were going for at the time. And for a lot of games, they're just not going to age well, and they're just not going to be fun to go back to. And that's how a lot of NES games are for me. I just find them not easy to go back to, and a lot of them haven't aged very well, so I don't really play that one very much. But in general, I do think you end up enjoying the game more when you actually keep a bit of the challenge involved. And number 3, my final tip, this is probably the easiest one to do, is to turn off the controls being on screen from the options menu in NSO, all of the apps. So some of you may not know this, but you can actually turn off the NSO controls always being on your screen in the options menu. I find this a very nice option to turn off, as it only stands to tempt you to use these features when they're always on your screen. Plus, they're just annoying to look at for me personally. Oh, and while you're there, you can also take a look at the other options available as well, such as the type of original Game Boy graphics you want to use, such as the Game Boy Pocket, the Game Boy Original, or the Game Boy Color. I recommend the Game Boy Color personally. You can find all these options in the menu of any NSO app at the bottom left of the screen, and I do recommend going there and messing with that a little bit. There's a few other options usually as well. I think these are just some good tips to enjoy NSO more. I've been playing a lot of classic games via this service for a little while now and having a lot of fun now that I've done these tips. I recommend following each of these, but at the end of the day, it is totally up to you how you enjoy these games. If you are like me, then maybe this list will help you like it did with me. I definitely recommend playing whatever game has caught your eye, or what you find fun, or what you've just, whatever's caught your attention. But besides that, I recommend playing N64 or GBA games, which GBA is my personal favorite. If you do not have the expansion pass, then Game Boy or SNES I have found is very fun as well. But that's basically the video. I know this one was a lot more heavily scripted. I just, framed it that way. I just didn't want to, guide people and not remember what I was talking about. This wasn't so much like, oh, here's an opinion piece. I really wanted to kind of help people out who, have this subscription service and just, aren't thinking about this stuff as much as an idiot like me is. So I figured these were some good tips to keep in mind if you really want to enjoy some of these games to their fullest, because I found that I had way more fun when I followed these general rules. And I think there's exceptions. You just have to, have some common sense, I suppose, depending on the situation of the game. But overall, I think that they're really good tips to follow, and they've greatly improved my experience playing them. So You all let me know what you thought of these tips and this video. If you don't mind, I would appreciate it if you left a like on this video if it helped you out in any way. And if you didn't like the video, I thank you for watching this long. And I will see, oh, and don't forget to engage that subscribe button down below. And with all that out of the way, I'll see you all in the next video. God bless.
I wish I knew